You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast brought to you by 90 Min. Hope you enjoyed the international weekend. Hope you've had a nice break, had a nice rest, because of course we're heading towards Arsenal's return, and that return comes at Anfield. And something tells me it's going to be a very difficult return to club football for the Gunners later on this week. So I hope you've enjoyed the weekend that's just gone, switched off a little bit, turned your focus is maybe to other things, family, friends, getting out on the town, whatever it may be. I hope you've enjoyed that rest, because I can tell you one thing: the stress will return this coming weekend. There's no doubt about it. Hope you're all well. Haven't been on for a few days. I decided to take that exact route, and that was to kind of cut off and have a little bit of a break for a few days. Got a mad busy week of work this week, so felt it was probably best to rest up. And I had a bit of a cold at the back end of last week as well that I was really struggling with, so it gave me some time to just chill out, relax, get back on track. And here we are with our first episode back. Lots and lots to get into today. We're going to be talking about Ramsdale and Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka, of course, who all start for England this evening against San Marino. We're going to be talking about Marseille and their reported interest in signing William Saliba on a permanent deal. We'll be talking about Eddie Nketiah's future, a little bit about Nicolas Pepe, touch on the Kulusevski story, but most importantly tonight on this live edition of the show, we will be taking your questions. You've been sending me your questions. I've got a few from Twitter. I've got a few from YouTube. And of course, those of you who are watching us live at the time will be able to submit some questions into the chat box as well. And I will do my best to work my way through as many as possible. The focal point of this episode is the Q&A, so I'll do my best to get through the other bits as quickly as possible so that we can then focus and spend a little bit more time on that. But it would be wrong of me as a Gooner not to congratulate Aaron Ramsdale and Emile Smith-Rowe, who are about to make their England debuts in around about 45 minutes time. Now, tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about how they got on in one of our episodes. Obviously can't do that now because at the time of recording, the game is yet to kick off. But it's obviously a proud moment for Arsenal. It's a proud moment for those lads, and to have three Arsenal players in the starting lineup for England is a big deal. I mean, I know it's against San Marino. I know there are far more glamorous ties to come, but it's just a sign of the way things have gone at Arsenal in the last couple of months, that these guys have got the call up. It's a sign how much they've improved, how much they've progressed. And, a lot of people talk about having players in the national team and the benefits that you get from that. Some will say it's a myth. Some will say it's not. I certainly think that you get favorable decisions. I certainly think you get favorable media coverage. And I think there's a lot to gain from having players in the English national team. And I cannot remember the last time there were three Arsenal players in the England lineup. Can anyone tell me when that was? It must have been years ago. So yeah, if you can be bothered to do the research while you're on here live, check it out. But that's obviously a big deal and a big thing for the Arsenal, and hopefully it goes well for those three guys, especially this evening against San Marino. So just wanted to pass on my congratulations to them. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the reports from Ekrem Konu, who says that Marseille are looking to open talks with Arsenal over William Saliba with regards to potentially taking him to the club on a permanent deal. Now, as everybody knows, Saliba is out on loan in Marseille, is having a pretty good time of it at the moment, and has really kicked on, which in my opinion kind of proves that we were right to allow him to go out on loan in the first place, because the minutes he's getting are clearly benefiting him. The part he has to play and the role he has to play in that Marseille squad is obviously giving him what he needs in terms of responsibility. Ligue 1, it's not an easy environment. I'm not going to say that. It's not easy to play for a club of Marseille's size, wherever that may be. So there is a pressure, but it's also less pressure than you get at Arsenal. And I think that that's fair to say. So I think this is kind of the perfect environment for somebody like William Saliba. And Arsenal have repeatedly said that they'll look at the situation at the end of the season. And, reports have told us that they plan to keep him, and he is part of the plans. After all, if Arsenal do achieve their objectives this season and get back into European competition, we're going to need more than 2 decent centre halves. And I think we can all agree that Rob Holding isn't quite at the level we'd like. Is he okay as a third or fourth centre back? Maybe, but not much more than that. Pablo Mari, I'd say exactly the same. There's squad centre backs. William Saliba might not be there yet, but it feels like he has the potential to be a starter in the future. He has the potential to, to push for a place in this side. And ultimately, if he doesn't, and if Arsenal decide that that's not what they want to do with him, because he's gone out to Marseille and he's played pretty well, he now has a far greater sell-on value. And that is obviously good business too. Am I saying that Arsenal are definitely going to sell him? I don't know that. I don't think anybody knows that. I think people are speculating about it. I think people are looking at his performances and are adamant that he must come back and he must return. There are others who think that he just has no chance under Mikel Arteta, that the damage is already done, that the relationship is already broken, that the pair just don't see eye to eye, and therefore we may well sell him. I'll tell you this, I wouldn't be surprised either way. And I know it sounds like I'm sitting on the fence a little bit, but if Mikel Arteta was to go, not sure about this guy, there is 25, 30 million pounds on the table, which would see us recuperate our investment in him, I'm going to take it. I don't think I would be surprised, because ultimately he's not featured under Mikel Arteta yet, which suggests that at least right now, Mikel Arteta, or at least at the start of the season, Mikel Arteta didn't feel he was good enough, rightly or wrongly. If he stays, I also wouldn't be surprised, because as I say, I think we need a little bit more depth in those central defensive positions. This is a transfer saga or a situation, whatever you want to call it, that is not one of Mikel Arteta's making, in the sense of he didn't bring him to the club, but it's one that the club, I think, probably looked back at later on and said, I think we probably overpaid. Not because Saliba won't go on to be a very good centre half, but because of where he's at now, or where he was at the time Mikel Arteta took over. And I think the club have decided to be patient, to bide their time, and probably feel that the loan, the loan move would give them a bit more of an opportunity to kind of wait and see how it pans out. And ultimately a decision can be made from a much more informed position later down the line. I think he will return. I think he will be part of the plans, if I had to guess, if I had to, have a bet. But as I say, I wouldn't be surprised either way. And I think that that's what you should be thinking or feeling as an Arsenal fan, because I think that's the realistic kind of diagnosis, if you want, of what the situation is today. The situation today is that I don't think his future is 100% clear. And Marseille might open talks, but if they can't get near what Arsenal feel the player is worth, then those talks are going to come to nothing, and nobody needs to worry about it. But I'd keep a close eye on this one, because as I say, I don't think it's clear cut either way, whether Saliba stays or whether he goes. I think it depends on what's on the offer. I think that will play a massive, massive part, and that's just my opinion on it. Big hello to everybody joining us in the live chat. Lots of you in there, lots of familiar faces. Hope you're all good. Inter took him a few minutes to start on me. It's never Mikel's fault. Well, no, signing Saliba for £27 million was not Mikel's fault. You can't hold him accountable for that signing when he wasn't even at the club. That's the point I'm making. Sometimes you come to a club and you have players that have been bought for excessive amounts of money or large amounts of money, like in this case, and the manager might not feel they're ready. And why should the manager be almost held as a hostage to the price tag when he's not the one that sanctioned the deal? That's the point I'm making. Mikel Arteta should make his decisions on William Saliba based on whether he thinks he's good enough and based on what he's seen of him, and not based on what Arsenal paid for him prior to the Spaniard even taking the reins. That's the point I'm making. I think it would be wrong to say, well, the club spent 27 million, therefore I have to play you. I mean, look at Nicolas Pepe now. Arsenal are in brilliant form. Nicolas Pepe isn't getting a look in. He cost £72 million. So am I going to say to Mikel Arteta that you have to bin your plans and you have to put Nicolas Pepe in the team week in, week out because of a deal that somebody before you even arrived sanctioned. Absolutely not. And that's my point. It's not in the slightest bit Mikel Arteta's fault. And I think actually, although Saliba's done overall and relatively quite well at Marseille, there have been moments of inconsistency. There have been a few stinkers in terms of his performances. And I think if you watch closely and you do your due diligence, is the term I was looking for, then you will see that there are still inconsistencies. And therefore, instead of berating Mikel Arteta for the fact that Saliba is not at Arsenal, praise him for having the bollocks to stand up to the club and say, I don't care what you paid for this guy. He's not ready. He's not good enough. He might be down the line, and therefore I'm going to loan him out. And he's loaned him out, and he's improving. So, I think we should be praising Arsenal and Arteta and the way that they've handled this situation. We know that under Raul Sanllehi, numerous deals were done that didn't sit right with the club, that have been since reviewed and have decided to have been big mistakes. We know that's why he's no longer at the club. And Raul Sanllehi, that is. And so I think we should give the current guys praise and credit for having the balls to stand up and say, no, the reset button needs hitting here. That means all of the club. That means every aspect of it. And we are not going to, we are not going to just be hostages to deals that have happened in the past. GB says, because managers have a duty to protect the value of the club's assets. Like any business, you certainly don't go about destroying value. Ben White has also been inconsistent. Remember Brentford. The fact, GB, that you've had to go all the way back to the first game of the season to find a game that Ben White played really poorly in proves you completely wrong. You said that he's been inconsistent, and then you're pointing back to the first game of the season when we've played 9-10 since that, and he's been pretty good. I don't think that somebody having one poor game in 10, 11, whatever it's been is necessarily someone that's inconsistent. I think it's an unfair sort of tag to put on Ben White. But listen, you can protect the value of players where possible, but you can't protect where there is no value. And let's be honest, William Saliba, having not played for Arsenal last season, at all, having not been registered and then sent out on loan in January, had zero value. Certainly didn't have any of the anything like a £27 million value, which is what we paid for him. Actually, Mikel Arteta, I think, has done quite well to maintain that value by sending him out to Marseille. I think you could argue now that he's a £27 million centre-back, which means we haven't lost a penny. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. Keep the comments coming, guys. There's some great comments coming in today. And I know that sometimes I disagree with them, but I love the interaction. I love them coming in. So thank you. And big love to GB as well for your great comment. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, just before we move into the Q&A section, just want to quickly touch on a couple more stories, starting with Adrian Kajumba's report with regards to Eddie Nketiah. According to the journalist, he has told Arsenal that he wishes to leave the club. And look, I think we all saw this coming. I think we all knew that Eddie Nketiah's future is not at Arsenal. We all know that he is someone that is going to, most likely leave when his contract expires. And I don't think there's a lot that Arsenal can do about that. And to be honest with you, would I be bending over backwards to keep Eddie Nketiah? Probably not. As harsh as it sounds, as I always say, I love the idea of our young, talented players coming through, building, developing, and then eventually establishing themselves as first team regulars. But with Eddie Nketiah, I just don't see enough quality there to suggest that he's someone we need to hang our hats on. I think when we signed following Balogun down to that new contract, I think that was a telltale sign of where Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's heads were at with regards to Eddie Nketiah. I think obviously as well, it's different because Nketiah is at a different stage in his career to Balogun. He will feel like he can't wait, whereas Balogun probably can, or certainly can, at least a little bit longer. And I think that's obviously played a part as well. But listen, I wish Eddie Nketiah all the best. I really do. I think he's been a good servant to Arsenal. I think he's always given 100% when being given opportunities. But I'm not I'm not surprised to see him, you know, wanting to move on. It makes sense to me. Just while I've got it here, let me just bring this comment up from Tabras because I don't want to miss it. He said, "Did you read my DM regarding Ozil, Harry?" Yeah, I read your DM, and I apologize. I was looking at the wrong stat. I was looking at the starts. Rather than the appearances that he's made for Fenerbahce in the league. So I stand corrected on that. And listen, Mesut Ozil for me it has gone to Fenerbahce, and I know we're going off topic again, but Mesut Ozil has gone to Fenerbahce and shown himself to be a petulant child, and I feel bad about that because I was one of the people that was, very sort of um, frustrated by the fact that he wasn't involved. I felt like we were cutting our nose off to spite our faces. But I think you're going to see it now with Mesut Ozil. I think his head's just gone from the game. I just don't think it's his priority. I don't think it's his number one anymore. And the fact that this is now happening at another club whereby he's upset the hierarchy, whereby his attitude is being called into question, I think that is a sign that the problem is with him. And I was wrong about that in the past. I always knew that there was a petulance to Ozil. I always knew that there was a bit of a diva, if you want to call it that, inside him. But, to see him go to Fenerbahce, where he was supposedly going to the team he loves and the team he adores and supported growing up, and then act the same is obviously a red flag for me. But thank you for your DM, mate. I did read it. Listen, sometimes I miss DMs. Sometimes I read them and I don't get around to replying to them. So I do apologize, but always happy to receive them. So feel free to ping them over on Twitter about anything and anyone, whatever you like. Quickly, just on Nicolas Pepe. Now, a lot of you are subscribers to the Gooner Talk TV as well, and you'd have seen on Tom's video that he didn't write a piece about Arsenal selling Nicolas Pepe or wanting to sell Pepe. He said, in his personal opinion, he would like to see, or he would be happy with a £25 million fee for Pepe. That was then taken out of context and published by a number of other media outlets who just didn't do their job properly. Let's be honest. They've read an opinion piece and turned it into a news story. Is it because it's the international break and content is light? I don't know, but there's still no excuse for someone reading that story and then completely fabricating what come off the back of it. So yeah, I don't think there's much to that one. I don't think there's anything to that one. And to be clear, Tom never claimed. That's Tom Canton from the Gooner Talk, that there was something to it. He said straight away, that's not what I wrote. And it's all there in black and white for those of you who care to read it. So I think we can kind of, discount that story. Tutto Juve, however, in Italy have reported that Arsenal have offered Nicolas Pepe to Juve as a swap for Kulusevski, but that the Italian club are not interested and want at least 35 million euros for the Swede. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, okay? It feels like a convenient story. One day we hear, according to some of these publications, that Arsenal want to sell Pepe for £25 million. They look at Kulusevski's value, which is somewhere around that mark. They look at the links with Kulusevski and Arsenal over the last few days. They put two and two together. It's a very, very easy story to make, and one that I would not pay any attention to at this stage. So just wanted to clear those couple of bits up. But now it's the time you've all been waiting for. Let's get that Q&A underway. And if you want to drop a question in and you're watching us live at the moment, you can do so. We're going to Q&A it away for the next sort of 20 odd minutes. So looking forward to this. I do like doing these, especially during the international break when there's not so much to talk about and not so much to cram in. It's always good fun. Right. Let me take this one first from Ryan Finity. And these came through the YouTube community tab. As I say, if you do want to get a question in live right now, then please do pop a Q at the beginning of the question and then drop it in the chat box, and I'll get through as many of those as I can. So the first question is from Ryan Finity, who says, do you think we should play a back five against Liverpool to incorporate Tierney back into the side? So I assume what you're saying, Ryan, is do I want to see Tierney play as the third centre back, essentially, with Nuno Tavares playing as a left wing back? Look, I'm a big believer that you need to have your own system, your own philosophy, but at the same time, you also need to be adaptable, and you need to be humble enough to realize that when you play against stronger opposition, sometimes you'll have to make tweaks, sometimes you'll have to make changes, and that's just part of football. I think for me, on the balance of things, Ryan, I wouldn't go to a back five. I just think that we're finally in a place where we know what it's going to be from week to week. We know that out of possession, we're kind of like this 4-4-2, two banks of four, defending really, really well. And then, we've got Lacazette and Aubameyang, when available and fit, kind of leading the press from the front. And I think it's proven a really effective way for Arsenal to play lately. Am I worried about the trip to Liverpool? Of course I am. Is it a game I expect us to get anything from? If I'm being truly honest, no. But Liverpool are not watertight. Liverpool are not the Liverpool that they were maybe a couple of seasons ago. We've seen some cracks appearing. We've seen them drop points in recent times. And for Arsenal, things are going pretty well at the moment. So I don't think there's a real reason for Arsenal to veer away from what's worked in recent times. But I do understand the thought process, and I do get why there are a lot of people out there that maybe feel that way. So I think that you stay the way we are. A big question is, does Tierney come straight back in the side? Has Nuno Tavares done anything wrong that suggests he should be left out, that he doesn't deserve to continue in that position? I would argue probably not. I think he's been very, very good. But that is a question that we'll get a little bit deeper into as we start to build up to the game, because we've got plenty of content coming up around Saturday's fixture, and we'll talk about it then in a little bit more detail. We might, and I'm not 100% sure yet because it just depends on how things go with work, but we might even get an opportunity to do a live watch along for that game. Haven't done one of those in a long time. I know a lot of you join us when we do them. I know a lot of you enjoy them. Give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you'd be interested in one at the weekend, because depending on how work goes for me, depending what I get allocated to at the weekend, I might be able to make it happen. I don't want to make any promises, but if you're interested in it, chuck a thumbs up in the chat, and that'll give me an indication as to whether it's worthwhile doing. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's take this one from one of our members, Richard Barker, who says, after Josh's interview, how do you view his vision of Arsenal moving forward? Do you think he truly understood just how global a franchise Arsenal is or could be? I reckon he does, but Stan will get in the way. So the Josh interview, I didn't really get anything new from it. I didn't watch it and think, oh, that's different or that's new. It was a lot of the same stuff that I kind of expected and that I've heard before. But having said that, I think that what we are getting now is we're getting a more committed Josh Kroenke. We're getting the attention of Josh Kroenke. And, we never got that from Stan ever at any point. And I think that was one of the big gripes that a lot of us had. And I just want to see a bit more presence. And I'm one of these people who I listen, I'm not a fan of the owners, but I do think that it can be it's a kind of easy thing to direct your anger at when things aren't working on the pitch. I think ultimately they're responsible for what's happening on the pitch. Ultimately, they're responsible for putting the right people in place in the manager's seat, on the board, etc., that can, obviously help us to achieve those objectives. But I don't think right now we've really got much to complain about. I think they did back the manager in the summer, and some people will say that, it's the wrong manager and it's the wrong backing, and that remains to be seen. But I think they did their bit in terms of making money available, and in terms of allowing Mikel Arteta almost the keys to the club, along with Edu, to kind of do what they see as fit. So I'm not going to say that I listened to it or watched it and took loads away from it, because it felt like the same old, to be honest with you. With regards to will Stan get in the way, I think that Stan has had to take a bit of a back seat when it comes to Arsenal. You could argue that he's always taken a back seat and has very rarely actually been involved. But I think now you're seeing this club almost move into the care of Josh Kroenke, and I feel a lot more comfortable about that, just purely not because I think he's better, not because I know an awful lot about him, but just because he seems to be more active. And I think that's quite important. Not what you want from owners is you don't want them to be overactive in the sense that they're stepping on people's toes and that they're interfering with things that they're just not cut out to do. But you do need a level of activism. You do need a level of interest from your owners. You do need a level of engagement to make you, at the very least, just feel like they're hoping to take the club in the right direction. So look, we're going to have to see. But a couple of things that kind of really did jump out at me was the constant pointing to the fact that the Kroenkes didn't take full ownership of Arsenal until 2018. He repeatedly makes that point, and he really wants to hammer that home, because you're almost getting this feeling and this vibe from them that they didn't actually want to invest. They didn't actually want to be taking risks at a time where their full ownership of the club was still an uncertainty. Since 2018, when they did take full control, I think you can say that the spending, maybe not in terms of what we got with it, but what we spent in terms of monetary value, was actually quite strong and quite big in comparison to some of the other clubs in the Premier League. And for that, you have to give them some credit. So let's see. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what else we got. I'll take this one from Triggy, and then we'll move into some of the questions in the live chat box. He says, at what age did you become a fan supporter of Arsenal, and how did it come to be? Probably started supporting Arsenal properly when I was 5 or 6 years old. Hard to say exactly, because you don't really remember when you're that age. I don't think you do anyway. But yeah, it would have been around that mark. The first season I remember really, really clearly was the 97-98 double winning season. And how did it come about? Well, I was brainwashed, to be honest with you. I was brainwashed from a very, very young age, and I've never been able to shift it since. So yeah, my dad is the big influence for me when it comes to supporting the Arsenal. Right. Thank you for your question. Let's take some more now. Some from the live chat. Skipster with an interesting one. He says, in France, Pepe played best closer to the striker. Is he a winger, or should he be given a chance next to or instead of Oba? He is a finisher. I think with Pepe, I think he's a confidence player. He goes through phases. Sometimes he's really effective, really impactful. Other times he looks disinterested. He looks shot of confidence, and he looks like, an average player. And I think that's the thing with Nicolas Pepe again. And I know I've made this point on numerous occasions, but we keep going down this same route with him. And that route is, where we're sitting here and we're saying, well, Nicolas Pepe isn't a 72 million pound player. And I think that's clear. I think everybody knows that. I think we knew that from very, very early on in his Arsenal career. But I still think he's a good and he's an effective winger. Look, naturally playing from the right-hand side when you're left-footed means you want to drift infield, means you want to get closer to the centre forward, because the centre forward is in a more central position. That's just the way it works. You'll gravitate there because you want to cut in on your stronger foot. And I think that he's a good finisher as well. I think he's one of the best finishers at the club. I'd still rather a chance fell to him than most of the rest of them. I still think he's a more accomplished finisher than Bukayo Saka, for example, even than Emile Smith-Rowe, if I'm being completely honest. But it's that level of inconsistency with Nicolas Pepe that continues to be a problem. And listen, there's been a lot of talk, as I say earlier on, about him potentially moving away and the club supposedly being interested in shifting him for £25 million. Why can't we have squad players like Nicolas Pepe? Why can't we have people like him in and around the club, available when we need them, ready to make the impact off the bench, ready to fill in the absence of players? Because we will have that at various points in the season. So I'm not really stressed or worried or concerned or even giving much credence to the Nicolas Pepe situation at the moment. Because for me, he's part of the squad, he's part of the plan, and that's that. Remember, we're not in Europe. All of that plays a part. He'd have played 5-6 Europa League games up until now. If we were in Europe, that might have given him more minutes, therefore more goals, therefore more assists. And then maybe the narrative around Nicolas Pepe as a result of that will be very, very different. So not too stressed about the situation. I don't think he's a striker, but I think he operates differently to Bukayo Saka. And maybe his slight differences in the way he operates is what means in Mikel Arteta's eyes that he's not the right man to start at the moment. Or maybe it's just down to form. Maybe it's just down to confidence. I don't know. Great question, though. Thank you so much. Let's see what else we've got. Aaron says, do you think that the 4-4-2 is the future preferred formation we'll be playing long term? Or is Arteta going to complete the transition to 4-3-3 he talked about when he first took over? I don't think he ever really said clearly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall him ever clearly 100% saying, I want to play a 4-3-3. That is the end goal. And I think we've seen a lot of different formations applied by Mikel Arteta up until now. And I think for me, it's a difficult one to say. It's a difficult one to kind of answer categorically here, because do I think 4-4-2 is his preferred formation? No, I don't. I think that a 4-3-3 is probably more like what Mikel Arteta would like moving forward. However, I think he's looked at what he's got now. He's looked at what Aubameyang brings to the team, the fact that he's the captain, that he's the talisman, that it's important that he plays. He's looked at what Lacazette also brings to the team, which is a work rate, an effort, a physicality, an ability to press. And he's gone, I need both of them in the team. And this is the way you accommodate both of them in the team. You don't stick one out on the left wing. He tried that in various instances last season and it just didn't work. And he's just taken a decision that playing this way means I can get both of those players who are very senior and very important into the side. And I think the team have been set up quite well around them to accommodate that. But I think this is more something out of necessity rather than choice, if that makes sense. So I do think that eventually we'll move away from the 4-4-2, but I do think that right now he's looking at it and he thinks, based on the way we are now, based on the way things are going, this is the best way to play. And sometimes football can be as simple as just picking your best players. And I think that's what Mikel Arteta has done here. And he's decided not to overcomplicate it and just move on. Sam says, if we beat Liverpool, are we title challengers? No. Too early to be saying that. Tabre says, Harry Xhaka needs to go. We cannot understate how much his absence has brought the fan base back together. Regardless of his merits and flaws, he is too divisive and needs to be moved on. Thoughts? I think his absence has allowed people or has given people just a reason not to talk about him, which is nice. And listen, I said it in the summer about Granit Xhaka. I recognize his value. I recognize what he's good at, what he's not good at, what he brings to the team, what he maybe doesn't bring to the team. And I said that I'd almost made peace with the idea of him leaving just because of this very reason, because fans will constantly talk about him. When we lose, it will always be his fault. When we win, it will never be because he played a part in it. That's just the way that the agenda a lot of Arsenal fans seem to have towards Granit Xhaka works. And it is really, really frustrating. I think Arsenal are playing well at the moment in spite of his absence rather than because of his absence. But I get why you say that he needs to move on, because there's just this negativity that is around him and it's causing us problems. But I'll tell you one thing now, and I might, hopefully I do, but bite my tongue or whatever the term is, eat my words next week. I don't know that I'd rather have Lokonga and Maitland-Niles in the midfield at Anfield than having Granit Xhaka available. And that's the big thing, right? If everybody's fit, everybody's available, it's not so much of a miss. But given the injury problems we have and the fact that Thomas Partey could miss, which is what we're being told, the game against Liverpool, that's a big problem and it's a big worry. And you could do with Granit Xhaka's seniority. So I still feel he has a role to play in the squad. Whether people like him or not, I don't really care. I look at it as from purely a football perspective. And I think that you need to be able to compartmentalize that and kind of block out the noise about all the other stuff. I think he's a miss. I think he's somebody that we are getting on okay without at the moment. And that's great. But without Thomas Partey, if he is to be unavailable for Liverpool, I think you're going to see the problem now. And you didn't see it against Watford because it was at home to Watford, relegation fodder last weekend or the weekend before, whenever it was. But now we're in a place where if Partey continues to be absent, we're going to have a problem. Let's see. John Harding says was skeptical about the Amazon documentary when it was first announced, but really looking forward to it now. Do you reckon having the camera around adds a level of motivation for the players to perform? Potentially. That could be the case. Do I think that it's something that they'll be paying a lot of attention to? I'm not sure. I'm not. I don't know, man. I don't really know what the filming process is like. I don't really know how in your face it is. I imagine that the club will be very careful about the access that they give, and I think that's a big thing in modern football. Access is at a premium. It's very difficult to get in behind the lines, if you like. Obviously, Arsenal have agreed to do this documentary for the PR benefits, the financial benefits, etc., etc. But I don't know how much of an impact that's having on the team now. I think it's really difficult to quantify that. But I too, John, am very much looking forward to seeing it. Alex says, Harry, I know you watch a lot of Italian football. What do you think of our recent links to Bologna's Matthias Svanberg is supposed to be? Or do you think his midfield partner, Nicolas Dominguez, would be a better fit for Arsenal? I got to be honest with you, mate. I don't watch much of Bologna. I do watch a lot of Italian football. I tend to watch the bigger sides, and I know that sounds really elitist of me, but I don't really watch a great deal of Bologna. What I've seen of Svanberg, he looks like a decent player. I also like Dominguez as well, but I couldn't say for certain if they would be a good fit for Arsenal, but I will go away and research that. And I'll tell you what, if the links get stronger, then we'll bring on an Italian football expert with a far deeper knowledge of mine to give you guys the download on the player. Let's see what else we've got. Let's take a couple more of your questions. Hold on a second. Pratik says that Harry and Xhaka is the classic love story. Yeah, if it's starting to feel like that, isn't it? Jonathan says, would you imply a back three against the same question as we had earlier? Sorry, I should have read that before I read it out. Jonathan Thom says, would I apply a back three? No, is the short answer, but my full answer is a little bit further back. Let's see what else we've got. Architectius Stuck says, how do you fancy Arsenal picking up points this weekend? Look, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Arsenal pick up something at Liverpool. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's made incredibly harder if Partey's unavailable. But there's also a part of me that's worried about rushing Partey back because of what happened last season and how many times he broke down off the back of coming back too soon. But it's obviously a massive blow. It affects our chances massively, I think. But even still, I think we've got enough in our squad to give Liverpool some trouble. And I think what I take huge encouragement from is the fact that we've been a lot more sound defensively, a lot more competent defensively. And that makes you feel like you can hang in a game for a much longer period of time. Therefore, you have a chance of winning it. So, look, I don't think it's likely that Arsenal come away with anything, but I think it's possible. And I think we should be quietly optimistic about that and should be going into the game, feeling good. And yeah, why not? Why not? What's the point in supporting your team otherwise if you go into every game feeling as though you're going to lose and you stand no chance? Mile High Gooner says, hey, Harry, did you see my answer to the book question last week? I think I got it. I did read it. I don't remember if your answer specifically, mate, was correct, but what I have done this evening is collated all the correct answers because I received some on Twitter, some on email, some on Instagram, even some on Facebook. Some of you replied underneath the tweet, and what I've done is collated them all, and I'm going to send them over to Chris, the author of the book, who will pick a couple of winners, and then he'll get directly in touch with you and fire out some signed copies of his brand new book, All Roads Lead to the Arsenal. If you want to check out the review of that, you can check out our show from late last week. It was on Friday, I believe. But yeah, good stuff. You know what? I'm going to take one more question before we jump off. I'm going to be watching Italy this evening. They got a massive game against Northern Ireland in the World Cup qualifying section. Switzerland hot on their heels currently in second place, but that one could go either way in terms of how that group's going to finish. Difficult trip for Italy away to Northern Ireland. If you're listening to this after the results happened or the game's been played and you know the result, ignore me. But looking forward to sitting down and watching that one in about 5 minutes or so. So I am going to take one more question. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do, because I always forget to do this. I'm going to take one from Twitter because I did get a few on there as well. Bear with me a second. Where are we? Where are you? Here it is. Okay. John Knott. If you had the choice in January of either Ndidi for 50 million or Bissouma for 40, which would you choose? I think I'd probably go with Bissouma. I just find him a little bit more, not saying indeed he's not, but I feel like he's a bit more mobile. I feel like he's a little bit more all action, a little bit more of an all-rounder than Ndidi is. Although Ndidi's a wonderful player as well. But yeah, no, I think I'm going to go with Yves Bissouma. They're both 25 years old as well. And Bissouma's cheaper. I know indeed he's done more maybe in his career up to now, which would suggest that's why. But yeah, I'm going to go with Bissouma out of the two. So yeah, there you go. That concludes our Q&A, and really, really enjoyed it. We'll do some more of it over the course of the week. If it's what you guys want, just let me know in the comment section. Always happy to hear from you. Make sure if you haven't done so already that you hit the like button on your way out. Let me have a look. Hold on a second, because we have got currently at the moment over 150 of you watching us across the multiple platforms. But on YouTube right now, I've only got 35 likes. Come on. Let's try and get that up to as close to 75 as possible by the time the outro plays. The likes really, really do help. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure if you want to become a member, you do so by clicking on the link in the description. If you're listening via the audio platforms, please do leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and views on the show. And I'll be back tomorrow with not one, but 2 bits of content. And we're going to be making some changes to the studio tomorrow as well. So I'm going to be up from the crack of dawn, moving stuff around. We've got some new bits, new equipment, new setup. So looking forward to getting all that set up as well. Was hoping to do it today, but never got around to it. So we'll be doing that tomorrow, and look out for the new look. I'll be back very, very soon with more. Until next time, take care of yourselves and stay safe. Goodbye.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.